By the end of this video, you'll never look at stasis the same. But before we get into this crazy build, a word from today's sponsor. Yahaha is a new user-generated content creation platform for a 3D multiplayer interactive experience. The best part about it is you don't need any coding experience or server knowledge. How? Well, it's simple, utilizing the cool features, components, and smart assets provided by Yahaha Studios. Trust me, there's over 1 million. This will allow anybody without any coding experience to create and publish their own virtual experiences. This is not just a solo player experience, but it supports multiplayer, so you and your friends can enjoy Yahaha games. Now, maybe you're not into games, and that's fine. You can create your own virtual 3D experience in Yahaha by adding a YouTube sharing screen and showing videos to other people. Still looking for more to do? Well, Yahaha hosts regular live sessions for the community to help creators enhance their metaverse building skills. You can follow them on their Twitch page. If you're still interested in Yahaha, click the link down below or scan the QR code on screen and start making your dream games and virtual experiences for free. Huge shout out to Yahaha for sponsoring today's video. Now let's get started with today's build. Who doesn't like a good stasis build? Now, normally I start these builds off by going off the base of the whole subclass, but let's try something a little different today. Let's cover the two money makers of this entire build. For starters, the exotic of choice is none other than the Renewal Grasp. A lot of players had forgotten about this exotic, especially after it got nerfed because of PvP. It comes with the exotic perk, Depths of Duskfield. Your Duskfield grenades have a much larger radius. Allies inside the Duskfield take reduced damage, and targets inside the area deal reduced damage. To simplify this, guys, enemies within your Duskfield deal 50% less damage, and allies within your Duskfield gain a 25% damage resist. Now, for majority of this build, your enemies are going to be within your Duskfield, meaning they're going to be dealing 50% less damage, which is great for those endgame activities where things can be a little chaotic and hectic. Moving into our weapon of choice, we have none other than the Riptide Fusion Rifle. And yes, this is a stasis fusion rifle, meaning you're gonna get that synergy with your stasis build. Now, the most important perk on this fusion rifle is gonna be in the final column, and that's going to be Chill Clip. Direct hits with the top half of the magazine cause a detonation that slows nearby targets. Essentially, when utilizing the perk Chill Clip, direct hits create a stasis burst which applies 50 slow. Now, for those wondering, how do I get my hands on this Riptide? How do I go for this Chill Clip roll? Well, if you've been partaking in any Iron Banner or have a couple Crucible engrams saved up, if you head over to Lord Shaxx and go to the second page, you'll notice that the Riptide is one of the weapons he's offering. And yes, it only requires 1 Crucible engram, 25 legendary shards, and 5,000 glimmer. And if you're anything like me, you're sitting on a bunch of engrams, and all you have to do is keep purchasing until you get your ideal god roll. Now that we've chosen our exotic of choice and our weapon of choice, let's get into the mods for today's build. Since this build revolves around throwing as many grenades as possible, we're gonna be using 3 firepower mods. Now, each firepower mod will grant 15% grenade ability energy, meaning we're gonna have a total of 45% grenade ability energy returned to us every time we throw a grenade and we're charged with light. Up next, we want to become charged with light, so we want to use the mod Elemental Charge. This will make you charged with light by picking up an elemental well. Now, if that elemental well matches your subclass, this will give you charged with light ×2. Now, since we are using a stasis subclass, we want to create stasis elemental wells. But here's the drawback. There's no such thing as stasis elemental wells, which is why we want to use the mod Elemental Shards. Stasis shards now count as stasis elemental wells. Now that the first half of the build is completed, when we pick up a stasis shard, this will make us charged with light ×2. Thus, every time we throw a grenade, this is going to activate firepower, which is going to give us 45% grenade energy back and take one of our stacks of charged with light. Now, there's 2 more mods that I highly recommend. Since you are using this in endgame activities, your teammates are going to be generating a lot of orbs, which is why you want to use the mod Innervation. Reduces the grenade cooldown each time you pick up an orb of power. Each orb of power you pick up is going to grant 12% grenade energy back. And yes, if you run 2 of them, it does come with diminishing returns, but it will grant you 18% grenade ability energy per orb pickup. And for today's build, I'm utilizing 2 of these mods. Now, to put the icing on the cake, when you do utilize your grenade, you're only going to get 45% grenade energy back. Yes, guys, that's not a full grenade. We need to supplement the rest in a different location. This is why on our class item, we want to utilize 2 bomber mods. One bomber mod will give us 14% and the second one will give us 18%. Yes, you do get diminishing returns similar to our mod of innervation, but 18% isn't bad for 2 bomber mods. Now, if you do plan on utilizing this build in PvE, I highly recommend a tier 8 or above on your discipline. This is going to be your grenade cooldown. Now, what if I told you that utilizing all this still won't complete the build? It all falls back on the fragments and aspects you choose on your subclass. As for your dodge, your jump, and your melee, that's up to the user's preference. For your grenade, if you're not using Duskfield, you're probably not going to have a fun time utilizing this build. Why?
Because it won't work.
This is why Duskfield is our only option. As for aspects, there are 2 specific aspects that are necessary for today's build. For starters, you want to utilize Grim Harvest. Killing enemies affected by stasis spawn a stasis shard. Essentially, if you want to utilize the charge with light method and utilize elemental shards, this is the only aspect that's going to give you stasis shards. Lastly, with Grim Harvest, this gives us 3 fragment slots. As for our last aspect, not only does it amplify our grenades, but it synergizes well with the Renewal Grasp. We have the Touch of Winter aspect. This is going to enhance our stasis grenades. Since we are utilizing Duskfield, this increases the radius a tad bit and creates a small stasis crystal on impact. When you combine the Renewal Grasp and the Touch of Winter aspect, rather than creating a small stasis crystal on impact, you now create a large stasis crystal on impact. Now, when it comes to choosing fragments, this is very important. Our first fragment of choice is Whisper of Rhyme. Collecting a stasis shard grants a small amount of overshield, which falls off after 10 seconds. Collecting an additional shard adds to the overshield and refreshes the timer. Look, if this was just for an overshield, I wouldn't be utilizing it. But if you're below full health, picking up a stasis shard will grant 12 health points, and picking up a large stasis shard will grant you 35 health points. And if you are at max health, this will grant you an overshield. Look, once you get your hands on this build, you're gonna realize that you're gonna be dropping a lot of stasis shards. And when it comes to endgame content, you wanna survive as much as possible, which is why Whisper of Rhyme will keep you in the game and keep you in the fight. Now, have you ever seen those void explosions and think,
oh man, that's awesome. I want to do that.
Well, you can do the same with your stasis crystals. When utilizing the fragment Whisper of Fissures, it increases the damage and size of burst of your stasis crystal when you destroy a stasis crystal or defeat a frozen target. Look, you're going to be seeing a lot of this. Your stasis crystals are going to shatter and it's going to look like an explosion. Why? Well, since you are throwing dust-filled grenades, you're going to be freezing a lot of enemies. Not only that, since you are creating a large stasis crystal on impact, you can just shatter the middle stasis crystal, which is going to cause damage to nearby enemies. Just look how much damage I'm dealing to all these low tier rank and file enemies. This is why I said, if you're not running the right fragments and aspects, you're not going to have a good time. And yes, all these enemies you're killing are dropping stasis shards, aka more overshield. Hey, you remember that bomber mod we had on our class item? We want to use that as much as possible, which is why our next fragment is going to amplify our regeneration rate of our class ability. That fragment is none other than Whisper of Refraction. Killing enemies affected by stasis grants class ability energy based on enemy rank. Yes, we might be killing low tier enemies, but that's still 9% energy. Look, when it comes to endgame activities, you're always taking damage. Sometimes you're taking so much damage, you're always in the red, which is why our next fragment will only benefit you when you do take damage. We have Whisper of Torment. You gain grenade energy each time you take damage from targets. For those wondering, receiving damage from an enemy grants 4% grenade energy. If you're in the critical, it instead grants 16.7% grenade energy. The downfall of it though, it is a 1 second cooldown per activation. Now our last fragment is really going to be the driving force behind our grenades. We have Whisper of Shards. Shattering a stasis crystal temporarily boosts your grenade recharge rate. Shattering additional stasis crystals increases the duration of this benefit. And yes, you get a plus 10 to your resilience. Now let me cover the gameplay loop because it's fairly simple. Since we are utilizing a Riptide with the perk Chill Clip, when we get a kill with it, this is going to generate a stasis shard. By picking up that stasis shard, this is going to make us charge with light. But hey, you don't have to get a kill with your Riptide. Any ability kill with stasis will generate a stasis shard, thus making you charge with light. Once you become charged with light, this is how the cycle begins. When you toss a grenade, it's going to be your dusk field. This is going to activate the renewal grass perk, Depths of Dusk Field, meaning if you throw that grenade on top of a group of enemies, they're going to be dealing 50% less damage against you. Keep in mind that if they're inside your dusk field, they're going to freeze. Keep in mind that when you do toss your grenade, this is going to activate the mod Firepower, giving you 45% grenade energy. Now this is where you want to activate your class ability, thus activating both bomber mods, giving you another 18% grenade energy. And if you are utilizing a tier 8 discipline or higher, your grenade will be fully charged, thus allowing you to perform the cycle all over again. Keep in mind that that's just a simple gameplay loop. When you defeat frozen targets, this is going to activate Whisper of Refraction. When you destroy frozen targets or your stasis crystal, this is going to increase the size and damage because of Whisper Fissures. Before we end the video, there are some final notes you must keep in mind. When utilizing the Riptide and you're going up against an anti-barrier, unstoppable, or overload enemy, if you fire 2 shots of your Riptide at them, this will deny their recharge ability, thus giving you ample time to deal even more damage against them. And don't worry, if it looks like they're gonna unfreeze, just fire 2 more shots with your Riptide. This will delay their process once again. Also, you can do the same function with your Duskfield grenades. If you see an anti-barrier, overload, or unstoppable enemy, tossing a Duskfield grenade on them will not only reduce their damage output by 50%, but it will also freeze them in place, denying them their recharge ability. I feel like stasis has been overlooked for endgame activities, and when you have weapons such as the Riptide, it only amplifies the stasis subclass. If you enjoyed today's video and you're not subscribed to my channel, what are you doing? Click that subscribe button. Stay up to date with every Destiny 2 video I make. If you are subscribed, do me a favor and click that like button and share this video with all your friends. Thank you so much for stopping by and hanging out. You enjoy the rest of your day, and I will see you in the next video.